Distribution provided by Cloud Sigma, the cloud that adapts to you. Visit cloudsigma.com/thisweekend for a free $200 credit.
Welcome to This Week in Music. My name's Ian Rogers. We are here in Nashville at the Americana Music Conference, and I'm joined now by Jed Hilly, who's the Exec Director of the Americana Music Association. Thanks for taking time. I know you've got to be crazy. This is your busiest week of the year.
It's okay. My schedule's like a mess at this point in time. My head's sort of spinning after last night.
Well,
thank you for having me.
Thanks for taking the time. Last night was amazing, by the way. I mean, if people didn't see the awards show, can they go look at it online in perpetuity somewhere? I know it was on television last night.
Access TV broadcast it live. There will be an edited version of the show on Austin City Limits starting the week of November 10th.
Okay.
And Access will rebroadcast a slightly edited but the longer 2-hour version of the show a bunch of times over the course of the next year.
It was incredible. We got to. I was there for 2.5 hours and got to see, started with, I couldn't believe I actually got to see Tom T. Hall in my life.
Yeah.
All the way through, Bonnie Raitt, Richard Thompson, the house band is unbelievable.
Booker T playing Hammond with the Alabama Shakes.
Booker T with Alabama Shakes.
That's cool.
The rhythm section of the house band is Brady Blade and Don Was, and you got, Buddy Miller. Incredible production. So let's rewind.
Okay.
Tell us a little bit about yourself, Jed. What's your background and how did you end up here?
I was one of those fledgling bass players 20-something years ago who was destined to be a rock star, and we imploded like the best of us, and I also acted as sort of the manager of the band, booking gigs. We were in New York and I made all the relationships with the clubs. And
where'd you grow up?
Outside of New York and in Vermont. I had a great sort of dual lifestyle where I had the benefits of the city, and then my mom's a country girl, and we had a farm in Vermont.
Nice.
Which to sort of take the Dylan line, it's not a house but a home. We had our house in New York, but our home was in Vermont.
Right.
So, fast forward out of growing up in a rock band. Didn't happen. Somebody at CBS Records at the time said, "You're pretty good at that other side." Part-time job, inventory clerk, what was called an account service rep in 1991 or 2, and which basically meant going into Tower Records and starting with the letter A.
Stock check.
Aerosmith, rocks,
right.
Toys in the Attic, 1, 2, 3, and then
right.
Passing along. That led through about 7 different jobs over the next 10 or 11 years at Sony Music Entertainment. It was graduate school in the music business. I was really fortunate. I literally started on the street to the mailroom. I got a job with Sony Music Distribution. I moved through from there to became vice president of marketing in 1997, international marketing. Looked after a band called Creed for a few years as they exploded. That was fun. Had the opportunity to help on the grassroots marketing campaigns for Pearl Jam, for a bunch of different acts. 2001 came, 9/11 came, and I had 3 kids, and I was traveling halfway around the world every 6 or 8 weeks. And literally came home, and classic. Kids didn't recognize me at times.
Wow.
So my reality check that we all had on that day was, my life's got to change. I think I was the only person dumb enough who loved New York so much that I didn't move my kids to the suburbs.
Right.
And just realized I needed a change, and Nashville seemed like a great place to be. Got here and met Mrs. Orbison, Barbara. The great Barbara Orbison,
yep.
And Roy's widow, and she entrusted me to look after the estate of Roy. So I was sort of head of label for Orbison Records. It was me and Barbara. And we had a great time, and it was an incredible experience for me to go from marketing for marketing's sake with some of the acts that I mentioned before to learning the lesson that Barbara taught me, which was, baby, we are not marketing Roy. We are just reminding them that he wrote 20 of the greatest songs of all time.
Having spent some time with Barbara, I can picture that.
She was marvelous, and man, she was spot on. And that laid the groundwork for when the Americana Music Association came to me and said, would you take this position? It was like, I'd spent 4 years with Barbara. We had had some enormous accomplishments and successes. Did another wonderfully received documentary on Roy. Sales exploded during this period. Barbara had this great idea, let's get Roy a stamp. And we lobbied the U.S. Congress. She sent me to D.C. I put on a suit and tie, beat the heels off my shoes. We got 48 members of Congress to sign a petition to the Postmaster General.
Wow.
And they're supposed to give us a stamp next year. I just wish Barbara would be around to see that. But anyway, she taught me the importance of following your heart and of marketing from truth. And I realized when the opportunity to market artists, like Tiff Merritt, Rodney Crowell, Bonnie Raitt, that was an experience and an opportunity that I wanted to jump at. I've never held a job for more than 4 years. Barbara was my longest tenured position.
Wow.
Until now. So it seemed like a logical move for me to head over to Americana. It was artists, music, songwriters of integrity.
And where was the Americana Music Association at the time? Like, what had they done, and what had they accomplished when you walked in the door?
I had no idea who they were.
Let's do a slight bit of history on them. Where did the AMA come from?
The AMA really came out of that alt country world, which was responding to radio, the corporatization, the FCC rulings, allowing 10,000 radio stations that used to be owned by 10,000 people to be owned by 6.
Right.
Which, playlists now are made in Minneapolis for Florida. I mean, it's crazy. I guess it works from a money perspective, but it's devastating to artist development. All of a sudden, artists like Steve Earle, Dwight Yoakam, Roseanne Cash, Katie Lang, Joe Ely, these artists are gone from the commercial landscape. They're gone. And this group came together to fight to shine a light on those artists that otherwise would not be heard. That was the premise. They formed a trade association, much like the IBMA or the CMA, to fight that cause.
All right, so I think it's really interesting that the Americana Music Association really was reactionary to the commercialization of country music. Is that reasonable to say?
I think it's spot on. Yeah, what's happened. Emmy Lou has described the group and the organization as living on the fringe of the mainstream. I think when they hired me, it was partially my job to bring it to the mainstream, but with elegance and with the right intention. That was the mission of the group. The mission of the group, it was not necessarily to shine a light, but it was to raise the bar and to raise the tide for all ships to sail.
Right. It seems like a tough line to straddle, because on some level you're
salary.
But it's exclusionary by definition in some way. Even though I know you wouldn't want it to be, but what you're saying is, hey, that which is having success over there is not really what we were set up to support.
No, but I think it's really the difference between commercial art and fine art. I think, Lyle Lovett is sitting on a porch trying to write a song to tell a story through music in the best way he can. I guarantee you he is not thinking about what sound or hit is going to be a number one radio smash, right, is going to sell more records, or is going to make a crowd at Madison Square Garden go crazy. That is not what he is thinking about. He is thinking about the integrity of the art and the craft. And that, honestly, that's what's going to have legs.
Right.
I do think that what is so cool, if I can fast forward a tiny bit, what is so cool about what's happened is I give a lot of credit to the alt country world, because without that community, this organization probably would not have been created. But the truth is that other organizations that really are equal parts to what this community is just didn't have the structure. No disrespect intended. The blues community did not have the reactionary anger.
Right.
To fight
something
for the
to
artist.
rally against.
Something to rally against. But the truth is that the blues community is as much a part as this so-called alt country, to the extent that I don't even use the term alt country.
Right.
The word country means nothing to me, because it's a Zen approach. It's like the word country today means something completely different.
Yeah.
It's neon. It's mainstream. It's great if that's what you're into. If you love Jason Aldean and Taylor Swift, that's great. That's not my job. That's not my world. Charlie Louvin was country 40 years ago, but he ain't country today.
Right.
He's Americana.
Yeah.
So we are today's music, contemporary music, but it honors those roots, traditions, not just of country, not just of alt country. That's why alt country to me doesn't exist anymore. Americana honors, Dave and Gil are inspired by great American country roots music.
Right. But it's also blues and soul, to your
Bonnie Raitt is really inspired by blues,
Yeah.
But Buddy Miller, there is gospel in Buddy Miller's music.
Right.
It's that amalgam. It's that ability to, like any great artist. Picasso didn't just come up with Cubism. He studied the masters. So these are artists who are drawing from history to create a sound that works for them.
Yeah. Well, and I think I was thinking of this last night, sitting in the audience at the awards show. I've seen, I think it happens in every genre. The moment that things get too defined, it's when it all goes downhill.
Yeah.
As a hip-hop fan, right? As a punk rock fan.
Yeah.
The moment you start to put it in a box and can say, oh, that's not punk rock,
right.
or oh, that's not hip-hop, then it's over.
Yeah.
At that point,
well, everything
right?
sounds the same.
And you think about the early days of, think about, 1978 in New York, and when it was wide open,
Mud
and
Club.
you had it was
crazy.
just a new music, and the business hadn't taken hold yet. And it seems from just sitting and watching the show that there remains that openness in Americana. People kept referring to it from stage last night. It was just that this is just good music. It's what I think of when I'm a Mojo magazine reader. When I read Mojo, what's Mojo about? I don't know. It's about good music. There's jazz in there. There's alt country. There's soul. There's hip hop. It's a lens of good music, and I think that you guys have an openness to that. And it almost feels like Americana to me as a word just happens to be there. The irony I thought was great when Richard Thompson, a real Brit, finished last night, and Jim Lauderdale said, "Now that's Americana." the irony of that was, I thought, rang pretty loud.
Yeah, I think as a music business, we have shot ourselves in the foot in the last 2 decades, in particular. People used to say to me, and I got this when I first came in, it's like, Americana's a radio format. I'm like, no, it's not.
Right.
And radio formats stink. Radio formats are what's messed us up. I grew up listening to Scott Muni and Vince Scelsa on WNEW radio in New York. You'd hear Miles Davis, you'd fly to the Grateful Dead, you'd swing over to Steely Dan. It was whether it was good.
Right.
We joke sometimes. I think I even referred to it last night on stage. It was kind of like, yeah, we got a Grammy category now. Yeah, there's a word in the dictionary. But you know what? I lied. It's none of that stuff.
Right.
It's about a community. It's a people who are passionate about great music, whose artists they love are inspired by great American roots traditions. That's what it is.
So what does the AMA do? How does an organization foster that?
I think what we do is, and I think why we're maybe a little more different than some of the other trade associations, is that I believe that we are really an artist advocacy group first. Our mission is, we are here to support the business professionals in the music industry. But if you don't put your, I hate to use the word product first, we try to put our product out as an artistic product. That we follow that. We're not reshaping that. We follow that. What we do over the course of the year is we try to create events. We're a very small staff. There's two, me and Dana Strong are the two full-time people. My director of marketing, Michelle Aquilado, is up to 4 days a week, and we hope to make her full-time soon. Whitney Holmes is our other employee. There's 4 of us in the office. we try to maximize, a lot of effort. We spent a whole year putting this 4-day event together with 150 volunteers. Could not happen without the passion of this community. And then during the other, we try to be very careful about how we fundraise and how we broadcast our messages. So South by Southwest is very kind to us, and they like what we do. So they give us Antone's, which is a very prestigious venue. We have our showcase there every year, and it rocks. And it's, we get a lot of great media. That's a great beacon for us to put our message out.
Right.
The event I was talking to you about earlier, we've now moved our nominee announcement ceremony, which we used to do in Nashville over cocktails at 4 o'clock. Last year we did it in New York with Lee Vaughn and Roseanne Cash and the Civil Wars. This year we were in L.A. Buddy came out, put together a band with Don Was and Heffington and Greg Lease, and it's a mind-blowing band.
Yeah.
And Lucinda Williams, Shelby Lynn, and Robert Ellis came and performed. We actually we streamed it live through Music City Roots. Little 3-camera shoot. It was awesome. But moving out of Nashville, because we are not a Nashville organization, and that's been an important thing for us to move away from. We had to be in Nashville for our early years. When you live in a town that hosts John Hyatt and Buddy Miller and Emmylou Harris and Jim Lauderdale, and the list goes on, it makes sense for us to be here.
Sure.
But there's contingencies of Americana. There's hotbeds from Austin to L.A. to Woodstock, New York, that are critically important, and part of my job is to bring that community in.
Tie them all together.
To tie them all together, and that will breed happiness and exposure.
Right.
But we've got to be really careful, because not that we're being exclusionary, but if you are too many things to too many people, you are nothing.
Right.
So that's the challenge. So we do different events during the course of the year. We have a great thing we started this year. It's sort of the Americana meet and greet, and Alison Krauss donated a pair of tickets to 4 shows. So all of a sudden, and none of them were in Nashville. So, and the Avett brothers have done the same thing for us. So all of a sudden, we're now doing an auction through eBay. We're saying, hey, these artists have donated tickets, bid on them, proceeds go to us. We hook them up with the tour manager while they're on the road. They're at Red Rocks. They get to go see Avetts at Red Rocks.
Right.
And we all benefit. So
I just want to make an appeal to our audience too. It's the organization means so much more to me having seen it last night. It was my first time at the awards, and it's an organization I've known about for a long time, but haven't. As a fan, haven't been able to connect with until I was able to come last night. So I think if people can make it to one of the events, it means so much more. So I hope that some of the folks in the audience will do that. And as a, give me the pathway then. If I'm an artist, how do I get involved? And if I'm a fan, how do I get involved?
Well, one of the things that I do, and that I will be honest about, and I don't mean to be disrespectful to anybody, but it's not my job for you to call me and say, hey, what do you think I should do with this record? That's not my job. My job is to respond to that question by saying, if you talk to people, communicate. There's nothing like breaking bread. There's nothing like coming and experiencing. Mm-hmm. Sponsors call from a business angle and say, hey, Jed, I want to give the association money, and how much advertising can I get, and what kind of things can I do with it? I'm like, you know what? Hold your money. Come check it out, and let's make a plan together, because I want you to be happy. I want artists to be happy, and the best way you can do that, if you're an artist, you become a member, you can request the roster of our membership, which is about 1,600 people. Some are unlisted because you can imagine why. They get a lot of emails.
Right.
But a lot of them aren't. And it's broken down by category. If you want to learn about Americana radio or radio in general, there are groups of people who are radio promoters or who work in the business of radio. There are publicists. You can find out. We are here to provide a forum for you to advance your business, not to give you the answers to advance your business. We're all in this together, but we got to work together. And so that's the first thing for an artist is break bread. And I always say, be prepared to get in the van.
Right.
From the fan, we need to talk some more about that, and we don't have enough time on camera to do that. But I truly believe there is an massive emerging market. When I think of seeing the Avett Brothers come to our festival and conference 4 or 5 years ago and playing at the Station Inn in front of 150 people, and fast forward to 50,000 people seeing them at Bonnaroo, knowing every word, I'm thinking, well, they're not all members of the Americana Music Association.
Right.
How do we engage them too? So that, we've been growing our association from the business side, and now is the time for us to encourage the fan world, and that's pay attention to us as a fan. Come and see what we're doing. We have very few exclusive. We've got a membership meeting Saturday morning this week. That's members only. And we try to provide some benefits as we can. But by and large, our events are not exclusive. I want people to understand what it is we're doing. That doesn't mean that every artist can play at all our events. I mean, we only have 100, artists this year. 1,500 applied.
Right.
We just don't have the space, and with force.
Well, and also your job is to be good music. Your job is some of that curation.
Yes.
I think there's something interesting. You're talking about the growth with bands like the Avets. The internet. I think one of the things that I always say that I actually took from somebody else is that on the internet, quality is hyper efficient in a way that it wasn't before. Because as a consumer, I have more choice than ever. Mm-hmm. It's not just X number of channels on the dial, mm-hmm. right? If I don't like what I'm hearing, I can choose a channel. And mm-hmm. I think that it's not just country radio. I see it with some of the more alternative radio stations. I mean, in LA we have KCRW, mm-hmm. which I often joke is a lot of music that you're not going to love, but you're not going to hate. and I feel like you guys are representing in a lot of ways music that people love. And hopefully, my hope is that there's something about the internet that makes people follow not just music they don't hate, not just music that's palatable, mm-hmm. but music that they actually love. Mm-hmm. So do you? It feels like there's an opportunity to be a lightning rod for that kind of growth.
No, I think you're right. I think in another area that the music industry has suffered through whatever greed or just business, maybe I'm wrong, is gatekeepers, is what you're talking about, and trusted sources. I remember in 1978 loving Z Records, and they had that Taxi. Was it Z Records that had that Taxi on their LPs?
I don't remember that one,
There was this great New York crazy label, and just, I'd buy a record just because it was on Z Records.
Right, absolutely.
I would buy a record in the 70s just because it was on Warner Brothers.
Yeah.
I loved that. I love that stuff. I love Bonnie Raitt. I love the Grateful Dead. I was like, Warner Brothers, cool.
Right.
And labels, had that period. Epic in the early '90s was like slamming. I think there are some great labels still, but I think with the internet, it's like, whoa, where do we go? And I think some people are carving that out, and doing a really good job of being tastemakers.
Yeah.
And but I do think that we do have an opportunity to be more than a tastemaker.
Yeah. Or to support those tastemaker communities, perhaps.
Yeah.
I see a No Depression banner over there.
Yeah.
And there are, those blogs, have become those.
Yeah. My Old Kentucky blog, Pitchfork. these are great people, and with great taste. And Mason Jar Music is another great one.
Yeah.
I shouldn't even name one because I got to get going and name them all. But
yeah, no,
that's the hardest part of my job.
Exactly.
Is I almost can't say one or the other. But but you're right.
Though I think my personal belief is that the next sort of phase of internet distribution, after we're in a social distribution phase right now, but the next one is really all about trusted sources and curation, and I think that. I think the fact that you've defined Americana so broadly there's sort of no limit to the growth, because if what you're really doing is standing saying we represent good music, and to your point, what did you call it? Fine art versus commercial art?
I think there's truth to that.
And if you're representing the fine art portion of music, then I think that's exactly the part of music that should be growing the most and should benefit inordinately from the internet. So I think that's a really exciting opportunity overall.
Yeah, I mean, I think Bonnie said last night, she was like, we've got to stop. She kind of gave that definition. She said, we got to stop defining the cookie cutter. We got to stop this stuff. And that's where I was going with the music business. We created those cookie cutters. I was part of creating those cookie cutters. We all were. That doesn't necessarily work. And
Bonnie Raitt went one step further last night. She said that this is a really exciting time. I don't remember. I wish I could. You need to send me that. I need the quote. Yeah. Because I didn't want to use this. Yeah. She said basically it's a really exciting time to be a music fan, because when you can just go out and find information. She said, Google, the information on your favorite artist, and it's all right there. And that's something that means a lot to me. Grew up in a small town with no record store, no live music scene, and the notion that a kid in that town has the same access to music and music information as somebody in the cities that we now live is it's kind of impossible to overstate that. And I think it really plays in the favor of great music you love.
Yeah, again, our challenge is to not go too far, and because then the meaning becomes nothing. But I think as long as we, as an association, and it's our mission to honor and derive our inspiration from American roots heritage, I actually think we can't do any wrong. I think it will always exist and always live, and there will always be a base for that. As broad of an umbrella and a definition as it may be, to me it actually, if I were to compare definitions in Merriam-Webster's dictionary, I think ours actually is the most spot on. It is contemporary music that honors and or derives from American roots, music. They use folk and country as their benchmarks.
Right.
I believe it's beyond that. Sure. And I think we're proving that, and they may have to amend it. But if you look at the definition for the word country or the definition for the word rock and roll, all this stuff. What's beautiful about Americana, rock and roll, Alan Freed in 1951 coins this term that some say was a white man's R&B, and it's called rock and roll.
Right.
5 years later, Elvis Presley's on the Ed Sullivan Show, playing something a little different, I think, than what Alan Freed was talking about.
Yeah.
And 5 years after that, Chubby Checker wins the first Grammy Award for Best Rock and Roll Album, which is definitely different from what Elvis was doing 5 years. And it took him 10 years before there was a Grammy Award.
Right.
And I love this cycle thing, whereas, we were created in 99, and 10 years later, the Recording Academy creates Best Americana Album.
Right.
There's kind of nice symmetry to that. The beauty of Americana is that that definition actually can hold. Because what was rock for Freed to Chubby Checker to U2 to Coldplay is a really different thing. I think the definition of Americana actually is, we made a T-shirt last year after Merriam-Webster put the definition in, and Neil Portnow was our keynote speaker last year, and I gave him a T-shirt, and on the front it said Americana, sort of like AMA dot, spelled out like phonetically, and then on the back it just said look it up, but that, truthfully, of all the definitions, I think ours will hold much longer.
Right, because it's about where it comes from more than what it is.
Right.
Well, thank you so much. On that note, I'll let you get back to putting on a festival.
Well, awesome. Thanks so much for having us. Later today.
Yeah, thank you.
Right,
thank you so
for
much
coming
for joining
and being such an important part.
Man, thank you for having me here.
Topspin, to have you guys present our digital slate is a really big deal.
I appreciate it, and this is my roots as well.
Awesome.
So it definitely means a lot to me to be here personally.
Great.
So
well, thanks for coming.
Thanks a lot.
Awesome.
All right. Thank you guys for watching another episode of This Week in Music. Please be sure to go to thisweekin.com/music and like us on Facebook and all that sort of stuff.
www.americanamusic.org.
Americanamusic.org. And, sign up because there's going to be some fan stuff.
Coming soon.
All right. Thanks, everybody. See you next week.
I feel good, even though I shouldn't. I'm chilling so hard, couldn't tell you where the hood is.